more than 22,000 government services are now available from 100 plus ministries, counties, departments, and agencies. 13.5 million active users by December last year, with an average of 300,000 users on a daily basis on eCitizen. The Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury, John Badi, reported that the eCitizen platform is processing about 120,000 transactions daily. And by the end of the last financial year, 2023-2024, they had collected 108 billion shillings through the eCitizen platform. Let's go to the Auditor General, Nancy Gathungu, who audited for the financial year ending June 2024. She revealed that, yes, 100.8 billion shillings collected through eCitizen, but there were private companies that were running eCitizen that received 591.9 million shillings from convenience fees and a further 857 million shillings in maintenance fees. A cumulative 1.45 billion shillings was paid to private companies on this. One of them is Webmasters. The CEO is James Ayugi. He's here. Good morning, James.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Very well.
Yes, yes.
Karibu sana to Fix the Nation with us, a conversation at a time. Here in this conversation today, it's just answering questions and even answering the concerns from the public. We'll get questions that are being asked here online, and we'll pick some calls, and we hope that you're going to answer. Yeah?
I'll try my best.
You will, eh?
Yes.
Very good. Very good. We like people like that. We like people who say that they'll try their best.
Right.
When we sent out the poster yesterday saying that James Ayugi, the founder of eCitizen and CEO Webmaster Kenya, would be coming, there are people who, immediately said, is this the guy who's eating the 50 bob that we pay for convenience fee? Is he the one? So James Ayugi, yes or no? Are you the one eating the 50 bob for convenience fee?
The government is the one who's eating the 50 bob. So the 50 bob goes directly to government.
Not to you?
Not to me.
Do you get a portion of it?
We have a contract with the government, and the government pays us as per the contract. We are not related to any convenience fee that is being
now
collected.
Part of your payment comes from the convenience fee?
That is government to decide. So I can say probably yes, but we don't depend on convenience fee. No.
Okay. 1.45 billion shillings out of 100 billion shillings is about 1%. Is that what your contract says?
It's not on per percentage. It is per service. So we offer support and maintenance as a company. And by support and maintenance, I mean when there's attacks, when there's security patches, when there's support and calls coming in and there's issues that needs to be fixed, we're able to offer second level support and third level support. So we are just technical support, offering technical support. And this is common across different services that are running both in government and private sector.
So who's we, James?
The company, Webmasters.
Is there any other company, or is it just Webmasters? One
thing that most people don't understand, eCitizen is just a brand that is owned by the government. By that, what do I mean? There are hundreds of different vendors providing different technologies that are within the same ecosystem. The branding aspect was to make it easier for the citizen to remember one name when you're trying to access government services, other than trying to remember several MDA's website and all that. So the branding genius of government was just to make it easier. So from wherever services that we're offering, we offer support to those services, and that is usually within the contract. Other vendors also have their own support modules or support agreement, service level agreement with government to support their different systems. So yes, we are just one of the many other IT local companies and international companies offering services on eCitizen.
Oh, one of the many offering services on eCitizen.
That's correct.
Okay, let me start from the beginning, because I just want to get a timeline. Who developed eCitizen?
We developed eCitizen from ground up. But by eCitizen, I mean the single sign-on. When you register, you're verified as a citizen, as a foreigner, so that is the gate. So we developed the gate.
Right.
And then there is a company that runs the payment aggregation as a service. There's a company that makes sure that there is SMSs for verification of phone numbers and all those kind of OTP. So all these are different companies. So we have certain organizations that we've developed their core workflow engines, but there are other organizations that, there are other vendors that did. So for us, we developed...
The skeleton was you, and then now?
The base engine is us.
Okay, base engine.
Yes.
And then other people have...
Now connect to... so our contract was one to connect all the other services that are offered by other different...
The first contract to develop eCitizen, who held the intellectual property in that contract?
By intellectual property, it means your brains.
Sorry, okay, then the software. Let me go to the software, actually.
So when you develop a software, you own it, and then you license it. A very good example is Microsoft. They license to you a Microsoft Word, and you own it.
Right.
So you can decide to use it or not to use it, but you've already paid for it. So there are situations where a client comes to you with specifications of what they want, and then you're paid for it, and then you hand over the completed projects. So that's a paid service. There are situations like ours where we proposed a solution to government, and we piloted the solution, and then now we handed over this solution to government through an agreement we had with the government. So now they are the drivers and the ones who are running all the different modules.
Handed over, so does that mean, handed over or licensed? Is it, like you said, the first situation where you were contracted, paid, and handed over? Or this is my platform, I'm licensing, come on Microsoft Word?
So a licensing and handover is just the same. You hand over with a license. So the government can modify, can improve the source code and all those nitty-gritties related to the base technology. So all this is handed over by to government, and government has all the machinery around it. But remember, this is work that has been around, has been ongoing for the last 10 years. So this is not like a car that you can just hand over in a day. You understand? So what happens is there is something called knowledge transfer. Knowledge transfer is ongoing. By ongoing, what do I mean? Today we are dealing with different agencies, making sure that they're able to support the ecosystem, they're able to understand how the platforms work, and we have sign-offs for that. So
Sorry, I got a bit lost, and I just want to be very clear, because I'm really trying to follow and to understand.
Okay.
I don't know, to my understanding, handover and licensing aren't the same thing. If I hand over a software to you, if you've bought it essentially and you own the rights to it, that is yours now. You improve, you work, etc. Right? If I license it to you, it is mine. I am allowing you to use, right, at a given fee every year. I feel like those are two distinct things.
So the core engine or the base engine, we own the intellectual property, but that is on the side. When you customize a solution for a country, you hand over the customized solution to that country. So example for Kenya, the solution that currently is deployed in Kenya is owned by the Kenyan government. And all the enhancements and improvement are based on the feedback that we get from the Kenyan people. In other countries, equally, they have different version of the technology. Now, Kenya may not, as a country, may not start selling the technology because the license that they have is purely to operate within this jurisdiction. But we are allowed to customize other versions of the system for other countries other than Kenya. So that's pretty much what it means. Okay. So handover in this case is a compiled instance for the different installations, and it is now running in the government servers managed by the ICT authority, and they are the people who say, fix this, and then we push, and then they review, and then it goes live. So there's a gatekeeper who's government, departments in charge of the overall running of eCitizen in terms of hosting, infrastructure, and all those technical feedback that is coming in from the citizens.
James,
yes.
Just answer the public question.
Yes.
Who owns eCitizen?
eCitizen is owned by the government of Kenya.
In its entirety?
That's correct.
There's something that you've said here in your answer.
Yes.
That the base is owned by us, and then there's something that's owned by government. What is this base that you own?
The software.
You own the software?
We own the software. We develop the software.
Okay.
So when you develop a software, you own it. And then you license it to the client.
Okay.
So you can't say you own Microsoft Word at entirety. You purchased it, and then now you use it. So the government of Kenya owns the instances that is running on eCitizen 100%, from the brand and all the technology stack that is there. There are different agreements with the different providers, but for us, what we handed over is the core customized version of our software to the government.
The software is what is now you own?
Yes.
Can eCitizen run on any other software?
Yes, yes. It's just like eCitizen is like a house. Today, there'll be this furniture. Tomorrow, you want to upgrade, you change, and then there'll be a different setup. So eCitizen brand that is run by the government can run on different softwares, provided by different vendors, even in future.
How many softwares are currently running eCitizen?
There are hundreds of different technologies and several servers in different locations. Yes.
What?
But you only own one of those softwares?
Maybe 5, 6.
5, 6?
Yes.
Which are like the core of the eCitizen platform?
Just the single sign-on, the payment engine, and there's a workflow engine that now allows people to be able to make submissions and then pay for a service and then get an output.
So let's take a step back.
Yes.
Sorry, could I ask a question, James? Yes. Because I have not... Bado nataka kuelewa. James, please, explain like I am 5.
Okay.
Who owns eCitizen? Yes, just like a 5-year-old. Ivo.
The government of Kenya.
How? Then how do you come in?
So the government of Kenya gazetted from the pay bill to the name, and it's very clear in the Gazette notice, is only owned by the government of Kenya. So if I'm explaining to a 5-year-old, I'll say the name and the brand eCitizen is owned by the government of Kenya.
Yes.
The services being provided on eCitizen are serviced by the different government departments. So National Transport and Safety Authority will connect to eCitizen and provide its services.
Yes.
So the platform running NTSA service might be owned by NTSA, and it's supported by the vendors of NTSA.
Okay.
When you go to immigration, equally, they have a vendor who provides the passport system, and they're the people who are supporting and maintaining in case there's any issues. So the eCitizen name and brand and everything inside it is owned by the government.
Right.
We are just...
the platform on which eCitizen sits is owned by?
The government. The software. The software. We only licensed the software. We developed the core engine. That's what the single sign-on, the payment engine, which is done by PesaFlow, and then there's the SMSs. That's it.
Okay. Tell this 5-year-old what is a core engine?
Core engine is
to a 5-year-old again.
Core engine is the base code that everyone connects to.
So that's complicated to a 5-year-old. Simplify it a bit further.
5-year-old hata ajui kizungu.
Tuseme tu mumwambia hapa hivi mpata mtu kwa street. Core engine.
Okay. So eCitizen, as I said before, is the gateway. Gateway to government services. So it's the gate. So that gate, we're the ones who developed it, where you register, and then now you're able to access other departments.
Okay.
Number 2, when you go through an application process, regardless of which agency you're applying services to, there might be different platforms provided by different, but when now it goes to payment, that's also part of our core consortium members who's providing that service. So that's when you're paying. So we actually run the shared services on eCitizen.
Okay.
Shared services mean everyone else connects to it, and then they get the service. So we run only the shared services.
Let me try and put it in another way. Tell me at what point I'll be wrong.
Okay.
This is a building. The building is written there, Huduma Center.
Yes.
It's a building. When you get in, you'll find NTSA, you'll find court. I've also gotten in there. You'll find IDs, immigration, register of persons, all those. And this is the house.
Yes.
Okay? So you're saying that Webmasters built the house that is now branded Huduma. Right?
Continue.
So when I enter, I'm entering into Webmasters' house. That Webmaster is the one that also is cleaning the house every day, opening the doors, opening the windows, making sure there is air. If the AC is faulty, you repair the faults.
That's correct.
Then when I go to that cartella there, which is NTSA, the NTSA teller will offer me a service. The teller is, this space is provided by Webmasters in this house.
That's correct.
The service that I'll get, I'll be provided by NTSA, which may be using another vendor at the back.
Correct.
Where endo print DL, piga huyu mtu picha, chukua fingerprints zake, that could be somebody else.
That's correct.
Unalipa pesa ngapi? When they receive the money, are you also facilitating that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So what you're saying is that hii nyumba,
We are developers.
nyinyi ndio mlijenga nyumba.
Yes.
Mnachukua rent.
Sisi hatuchukui rent.
Nyinyi ndio landlord.
Sisi tulijengea landlord. Tulijengea the owner of the house,
So
who is the government. We are the contractor.
Nyinyi ni contractor.
Yes.
Contractor akimaliza kujenga nyumba,
Yes.
ana hand over nyumba kwa mwenye nyumba.
Hiyo ni correct.
So gava ndio mwenye nyumba.
That's correct.
So what is this that you're saying core engine? I thought the core engine was the house.
The house is the core engine. Basically,
So you built the core engine and you handed over to the owner of the core engine.
that's correct.
So you don't own the core engine.
So you don't own the core engine?
Now, intellectual property, what it means is when you build the house, there is experience that you may learn, and you have it intellectually.
Yo unabeba.
Iko kwa brain yako.
Eh.
When you go to a different location, utasema mimi nilijenga ile nyumba, niko na experience ya hiyo nyumba, naweza watengenezea yenu vitofauti kulingana na venye mnataka.
Yeah.
So the core engine is the base framework. Kwa code inamaanisha there is certain patent or certain copyrighted code that we can reuse. So to make our work easier when we are working with other countries. So ukinunua lorry when you're building the building, your lorry bado tu ni yako, even though it was used to build that building yenye unasema. So you've really explained it well, where we are contractors who build
The house.
the house.
Okay.
And then this house, kuna other government departments
Right.
when you wanna offer their services. Actually, eCitizen is the digital version of Huduma.
So,
Basically, that's it.
I'm still at this point where my friend Maranga, who's an architect, has designed a house, right, for me. I have brought in contractor called James to build.
Yes.
Anatumia plans za architect Maranga.
Yes.
Okay? When I finish all these guys, I've paid Maranga, I've paid contractor, and I've entered my house.
Yes.
Can Maranga claim IP for this house?
No. And this is when,
And this is now where Webmaster is Maranga. Is it not?
now it is a different situation
Okay.
where in that case, you are the initiator of the idea. You know what you want, tunataka ceiling ikuwe hivi, you're the initiator. In our case, we were the originators of the idea. So we presented to the government the eCitizen idea. The government gave us an opportunity to pilot this idea. And then now, after the pilot, the government said, now hand this pilot to us.
Yeah.
And then now moving forward, you can offer services under this framework. So it is different na hiyo yenye You know what you want.
And then you're
so
coming to someone
when
with
you
a vision.
yes, if you have the vision of the building na kila kitu, but remember there's also architects who build, they design, and then they sell the same design to so many people.
That's true.
So there are those architects who they are the originators of the idea, and then anyone who's interested can buy, and it's very clear this is not exclusive.
So when did the handover happen? For when you handed over to government, sasa mkawapea hii nyumba, kasema sisi kazi yetu ni maintenance, repair, nini, kufungua dirisha, all that.
Yes.
When did that happen?
That's last year, 2024.
2024.
Yes.
So before that, how much were you making from eCitizen?
Those are says disclose, but there's some amount there.
Bono is it disclose?
These are corporate issues.
So all the money that was all the service fees that were being paid on eCitizen were going to Webmasters then, before the handover?
No, it's not accurate. There's a big chunk of the 10 years that we actually provided services for free. 100% free.
How many of those years?
5 years.
5 years?
This is where the 397 services had been deployed, and there was no additional service that is being added. This is also the time when we had legal issues and all those kind of things. So during all that period, we were not getting any revenue from this ecosystem, but we were already inside there. We needed to support the services. So it was goodwill. It was just in goodwill. We believed one day itajipa too. So we maintained a small team who continued to support the 397 services.
That's for 5 years?
Yes, that's for 5 years. And then now, after the regularization, that's when now we had a framework in which the government said, this is when you provide XY services, this is how we are going to pay you. And that has nothing to do with the access fee that is gazetted by the government. The access fee is like the fuel levy. It is collected by the government, and then the government decides for digital services, this is how we are going to pay different vendors. So that's pretty much how it works. So it is collected as a digital access fee for digital services, and then the government decides this is how we are going to pay our vendors to avoid disruptions of services that sometimes are usually tied to budgetary allocations and all those kind of things.
Okay.
At any point, were you collecting money on eCitizen?
There's not a single day that money came directly to us. From day one, money has always gone to the holding account at KCB and then transferred directly to Central Bank. So, and during that time, we only provided the aggregation engine. This is where the National Treasury is able to view all the different transactions that are coming in from different services. So before they said, we are going to have a single treasury account, there used to be thousands of pay bills by the different MDAs, and there was no visibility of how much money is being collected by the different government departments. So after going through the pilot and the government said, this is now what we want moving forward, we can improve it, we can make it better. That's when now they collapsed all the pay bill into a single pay bill. And then now Treasury now runs the all payment services that is run on eCitizen. So everything from moving money to the different MDAs is National Treasury.
Let's take a break. We'll continue the conversation with James Ayugi, who is the founder and CEO of Webmasters. They're the ones who originated the idea, as he's saying. He says they're the ones who originated the idea and took it to the government for eCitizen. And this is digitization of government services. And they are now being contracted to help manage and maintain it. We have very many questions from you that we'll be posing to him, including where is eCitizen hosted, where does our data sit, who has access to our data, what's the protection of our data, and on if you're getting money from taxpayers, then there are some disclosures that need to come in. All that coming up next after this break.
Tulisema one conversation at a
time.
At a time. On YouTube, I see people are up early and they're ready to ask questions.
Ni wengi. Ni wengi. Like Sakina says, are public funds and taxes being utilized in paying webmasters for the eCitizen platform? Wairimu also says his pays from public funds. It has to be disclosed. You have to tell us, Bwana. Sakina continues to say, is there a data protection agreement between the software provider and the government? And can it be accessed and viewed by anyone? And how safe is our private individual information?
Right.
She continues, Sakina, that is it safe to say that this eCitizen platform is the digitized version of the Huduma card, which also entails the citizens' information, which had been rolled out earlier.
There's another one about, is it possible for iTax to be onboarded and integrated and simplified on eCitizen? Maswali ni mengi, and we'll get into them, of course, with James Ayugi, who is the CEO of Webmasters. Came up with the idea for eCitizen. Then you approached, who did you approach? Treasury?
Yes.
Treasury. And you told them, I have this really good idea. And they said, okay, let's pilot it.
So, of course, we, as a local company, this journey didn't start in 2014. It started in 2008. And in 2008, this is when we were contracted to do the e-registry. So e-registry was a platform where you can be able to access all the forms, digital forms. So you download, print, and take it physically to government. But still, it was an achievement because even those forms were not available back in the early 2000s. You had to actually get a
So it has cut one trip. Initially,
Yes.
it would be one trip, go pick form, go fill out form, then second trip, return form.
Yes.
So now it you have
digitized, so you have a PDF form. Now you can download it from wherever you are and then fill it, and then now you take it manually. Now, during that launch is when now the eCitizen idea came in, because we realized that there is a big problem when it comes to actually accessing government services. And by the time the next regime was coming in, digital payments was one of their key agenda. So we were invited, just like the way they invited other vendors to present. And since we were already in that place, in the digital space now for almost 5 years, we had the experience. So we presented a technology that pretty much we believed will solve the problem of services and payments. And at that time, the government said, what we've presented is what we've been looking for. But it was before the government, there was no budgetary allocation. That's where now financing came in from IFC, World Bank, to finance the initial 10 services for the pilot. Now, after that,
what did IFC World Bank finance?
They financed like 70K USD.
To?
That was paid.
Webmasters?
That was directly paid.
So you were contracted directly by World Bank?
On behalf of the government.
Okay.
That was through the World Bank procurement process, and now and most of the systems worldwide that are sponsored by the World Bank are usually directly paid to the vendors by the World Bank. Yes. So after that, now there was demand for more services to be onboarded. And by the time their financing lapsed, now we ourselves kept on supporting the ecosystem and improving the service. Why? Because even what we thought was what the citizens needed, we realized that there are sectors where we didn't get it right. So we started now improving the technology based on the feedback we are getting from the citizens. So up to now, when it was a very long pilot, probably by luck, we had days back in 2017 when there was traffic, and then we realized that even the technology that we started with needs to change. So we had to improve, and this is one thing that I've also learned: change is the one constant. Even wherever we have today, 10 years later, probably this will be primitive. It will change definitely. We're moving into AI space, and things will even just get better. So from the pilot period to when now the pilot was regularized, where now the government said, we want you guys to now enroll all the services. It only teaches one thing, that when you go through the right routes, this specific government is supporting local talent. Why? Because we were just a young company when we started, and there were big boys in the room, left, right, and center. But we had the idea that the government was looking for, and we also sold the hope, because everyone was like, oh, we need 1 year to do feasibility studies, or we need this number of, and it was just delaying the vision that the government wanted. So we presented, and the government said, okay, now let's proceed. So our journey is pretty much shared with other tech companies who also want to get into this space, to offer their services and their ideas to government. And from what we've gone through, we believe wherever the department you want to offer your services, you can co-create, you can submit, you can bid, and you can participate. It is possible.
I want to take you back, James, and you've given us that journey very well. So you had been contracted to do the, what did you call it, the digitization?
The pilot.
Of the registry.
Oh, the e-registry, that's correct.
Yeah? So in there, you already now are known to government.
Yes.
But then there are some words that you used.
Yes.
You were invited.
Yes.
And so you presented a proposal.
We presented our system.
You presented a system.
Yes.
So when you were invited, what were you invited to do?
To present whatever we have.
Okay.
Now,
so this sounds like the government had thought of, we need a solution.
Yes.
And then they said, who has a solution?
Right.
That's correct.
Webmasters was one of the names
yes.
on the list.
That's correct.
The government said, you bring your proposals.
That's correct.
And then you brought your proposals.
Yes.
This is very different from what you had said earlier, which sounded like a privately initiated proposal, where you had thought, and then you knocked on the doors of government and said, you guys, you need. And here is what we're proposing.
Right.
Kenyans now are aware of PIP, Adani, Jegai, and and a request for proposals. So which was it? Were you responding to an RFP by government, or did you go with your proposal without an RFP?
You see, RFPs and all those other is a different procurement process. Before you go through that process, the initial, I think all the banks even participated, all the banks in Kenya. The initial one was, what do you have for digital payments? As some people said, okay, we are going to set up point of payment ATM machines, left, right, and center. Others said USSD. So we came in with a solution that will allow the citizen to make an application online and pay online. Because I remember the day we walked into that room, I even asked the question, you want digital payments, is that what the citizen wants? Remember, we are not strangers in Kenya. We are also citizens.
You're
and
Kenyans.
we also apply for the same services. So we also share the pain. So in our submission was, as much as you want digital payment, you have to tie to the service. So that when I'm paying, at least I'm able to get a service. So when we presented a solution, not a proposal.
Okay.
A solution that we had already developed, and we showcase a live demo, not a PowerPoint.
Okay.
So after they saw our demo, and they said, this is what we've been looking for.
Okay.
Now, how do we finance you? Luckily, at that time, we were already vendors and shortlisted by the World Bank for other assignments in other jurisdictions through the World Bank procurement process.
Right.
So the government, since it was March of that year, wrote to World Bank requesting support to convert the e-registry now into the eCitizen digital payment platform.
Right.
Also, luckily,
we
were also the same vendors who had done the e-registry.
E-registry, yes.
So the World Bank had, since it was also not, they didn't have so much money and they believed it was quite expensive, they said, we can only finance this at this particular time. In future, we can come in and, so the financing part that came in through the World Bank was for X number of services, and that time it was just 10 services. And then now moving forward, we invested in adding other services. The government invested. Why? Because for these services to work, it needed to be hosted. For these services to work, it needed to be processed by government employees. So the biggest shareholder or investor in this whole ecosystem is the government. Because the government told all the employees and departments, you can now approve and accept applications through this platform.
James, just hold, I'm trying to get the Webmasters. Who is Webmasters? Aside from James Ayugi, who owns it?
Webmasters is a company that one of the shareholders, and it has other shareholders as well, which is PesaFlow, which came in as a shareholder later on.
Okay.
Yes.
So just you and PesaFlow?
That's correct.
That's it?
Yes.
Okay. So the we all this time has been yourself and PesaFlow, or they came in at?
So PesaFlow as a company came in later on because we realized we want to focus on government. And as much as we are focusing on automation, we need a payment partner to be part of our ecosystem and our business. So PesaFlow is core and is part of our global strategy, even to export and develop revenue collection. So we can't just automate without a payment service. So that's how PesaFlow came in.
Okay.
Yes.
So now let's fast forward to where we're at right now. Data breaches on eCitizen have been, you know, big question over the last few years, and anything that is online is susceptible to, you know, hacking, to breaches, to DDoS attacks, all of that, right? But now the question becomes, is our data safe not only in the hands of quote-unquote government, but in the hands of webmasters? How much access to data does Webmasters have? That's personal, you know, user information, as well as now collective data, all the shared ones. How is it processed? How is it protected? And how safe is it? Yes.
So in Kenya, how you handle data is protected under the data protection law. So we are actually required to have a certificate for data handling and several others. And they take you through a training session on how you handle data, on how you process data, and how you store data. Now, when it comes to the system or the access to the data that we that you submit on eCitizen, we do not have access to that data. We cannot even be able to see your application. We only have access to the code. In the event there's a bug, probably you are making an application and you've gotten an error. So we will be told there's this bug, try and fix it, and then before it goes live, there's review of what changes you've made, and then it is published. Now, different departments of government are the handlers of the data. So when you make an application to any government department, the employees of that department are the only ones who have access to your data. We don't have any access to data, to payments and all this information.
And at no point have you had access to data?
At no point do we. So we are usually given sample data. Sample data is, let's say we want these parameters. So that's what we're going to use to test a workflow. Once we have that sample data, now we publish it, and then now all incoming data is stored safely within government-controlled data center. There is nothing that is handled directly by us. Yes.
Immaculate Kasait, the data commissioner, was here last week, and we asked her this same question, and she said, as far as the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner is concerned, the eCitizen platform has some third-party people who operate there.
Correct.
And the requirement is that, one, there's an agreement of data handling between the third party and the government, that's the owner of eCitizen. And then that should also come to the user, showing the user that some of your data may be accessible to this third party.
Yes.
And then the user ought to know about it.
That's correct.
Okay. So does Webmasters have a data sharing agreement with eCitizen, the government of Kenya, the Ministry of ICT, whoever?
It's called data handling certificate.
So data handling certificate.
Yeah, from the Data Protection Commission, yes.
Okay.
We have that.
But is there an agreement between you and the government? Is there anything written that says that you you will have access to this and this is what shall happen.
Yes, yes, all that is
data.
that is pretty much in our all the contracts that we sign in governments.
Okay.
So it's usually very stated. You'll have access to certain information, and this information, this is how you handle it. So all those regulations, we follow them to the dot.
Okay.
Yes.
But what you're also saying here this morning is that Webmasters that told us it's on that built this building that we're calling the eCitizen Center.
Yes.
Okay. Is not able to tell that this is Eric Latif who has walked into the eCitizen building and gone to the NTSA teller.
No, we're not.
That as much as you're managing this building, you are blind to who has walked into the building.
Sisi ni wakufagia tu, kumake sure kama kakebula haifanyi kazi, inafanya. But
Yeah,
the operation.
You cannot actually identify a user
No, we don't have access to that information.
at all.
At all.
Okay.
All the information are run by this. In fact, there is not a single government agency that has all the data. The different agencies of government only have access to information they're authorized to access. So when you are dealing with driver's license information, another department of government don't have those information. It's only them who handle and stores that data. Yes.
Okay. More questions. We'll pick up calls in the next hour. We'll also go into all these other questions that are here. We've answered some of them directly, but stay on. James Ayugi is the founder of eCitizen. That's what he calls himself. He has explained to us what he means by that. And also the CEO of Webmasters. Webmasters is contracted by eCitizen to provide services. But also Webmasters is the one that developed the platform for eCitizen. And you say that you own the IP, but the entire platform, you've licensed it to government.
That's correct.
But you own the IP.
That's correct.
Okay. More questions will be coming up. It's 8 a.m. Keep it here. So we'll open up the phone lines shortly to hear from other people.
Right. Our phone number is 0719 038 858. I repeat, 0719 038 858. But there's a lot of questions coming in on YouTube, especially as far as matters eCitizen are concerned. We're talking about maswali mingi, and I know that's exactly why you're here. So, for example, is James directly related or connected to the big fish in Kenya? Who owns Webmasters? And you said it's yourself and PesaFlow. That's it.
That's
are there
correct.
any other shareholders?
These are information in the company's registry.
That's it, right? All right. Can this data protection agreement between the government and the software providers be viewed by anyone? How safe is our private individual information? Right. So you've said that there is a data protection agreement in place. Can it be viewed by the public?
So what probably I need to help clarify, before you get data handling certificate, you go through a training. And this training now, there's a regulation or the law on how data is. You can handle it, you can store it, and all those. So this is available to everyone. Anyone who's handling public information, not just government, even private sector. You realize there's been changes even when you're paying via M-Pesa. Previously, there is full names and certain information that you got in your phone. Recently, you have to call, you have to go through a certain process before you're able to access certain. So it's not only within government. It applies to anyone who's handling data. So when you're at that e-commerce website and you're submitting information, there are certain information that identifies you that you're not supposed to disclose.
All that is agreed. What the
Yes.
person was asking is, can it be accessed by the public so that we know the agreement between the software providers and whether it's the Data Protection Office or DPC, what does that look like? So that I know that this is the agreement, that Webmasters cannot see personal user information, but they can see sample data or things like that.
No, the Data Protection Act is available and anyone is able to access it, and we work as per the regulation and that act. So we only have service level agreements. Service level agreements is where when there's an issue, you need to resolve it within this time.
So you don't have an agreement, like a signed a third party agreement?
You are required to submit a data protection certificate. So it means you've gone through the training, you've seen the act, now you're given data handlers certificate, or a data processor certificate as a company.
I thought before the break you said that there were third-party agreements, because Eric asked the question about when the Data Protection Commissioner was there. She said when there's third parties involved, they need to sign agreements, and you said those were in place.
Yes, so under the service level agreements, it differs. There are certain organizations that have certain restrictions, and those are private to those agencies. But the service level agreement is pretty much on the code. You see, we don't even have those access to certain information that related to people. Sisi,
is there a third party, an agreement with the data, with the Office of the Data Protection Commission, that is, as far as what data you have access to and all of that?
It's not called an agreement.
It's called a?
It's called a certificate.
So that's what you have. You've been certified by the Office of the Data Protection
for
Commissioner.
Data processing and data handling.
To be a data processor and a data handler.
And before you get that, you go through training, the Data Protection Act and all that.
Okay.
And then there's also verification that they do.
Okay.
That come, how do you handle whatever little information or whatever you're handling within the ecosystem, they come to verify this.
Okay.
So these are all checks and balances that exist within the government.
And your service level agreement is between Webmasters and which department of government?
So the National Treasury, ICT Authority, and the Interior.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, in that agreement, there's a specification on how much data you have access to and what you don't have. That's the direct question. Is there anywhere in your agreements with government that restricts your access to certain data?
No.
So there's no legal restriction?
It is the certificate that is issued by the data protection that now, you see...
So is that a loophole? Because I'm even...
No, it's not. Example, when you want to get, let's say...
Sorry, I've just gone back to my notes actually from our date with the Data Protection Commissioner, and she was like, yep, SHA has third-party agreements with its various service providers. eCitizen does not, right? And this was part of her talking about data protection for these government services and exactly how they're done. Let's take a phone call before we get back and then talk about maybe why it might be a necessity. But let's just have a call. Is it Geoffrey, if I got the name right?
George in Nairobi.
Morning, George.
I'm fine, thank you.
All right. Do you have a question for James Ayugi?
Yes, I have a question regarding eCitizen platform. I booked a inspection ticket on Zika. The car was taken to Zika, but it went through, but they are not able to update the inspection. I was advised to go back to NTSA office. I went there for 3 times, but it was not successful to just update whatever the error was. I was later advised after 3 months of waiting to go back and do the normal inspection, book and redo inspection, but now I have to pay afresh. That one question. Then the other one is regarding to the people who have issues with NTSA in terms of that is the logbook. We are not able to do any changes or edit. If you get an error, you cannot edit anything, and there's a big backlog of issues with the logbook that you can't edit after the transfer from Teams to NTSA.
What kind of error? What kind of error, George? If you just to clarify, what kind of error would you get on the logbook?
Like now, when you buy a car, when you are transferring, you get the logbook on the system. It shows the previous owner has the vehicle, so you cannot do any transaction.
Okay.
The transfer was not done successfully from Teams to eCitizen, and there's no tab to edit.
Okay. So here there are 2 platforms. There's a Teams platform that was initially just go to NTSA itself, and they have the Teams platform, and then there is NTSA on eCitizen. There have been very many questions. These 2 platforms are offering different services. And then the other one is the glitches in the system.
So NTSA migrated from Teams to Service Portal. We are aware there are probably certain data that was missing or was there are people who've not transferred their cars. So there's usually a process of, there's a lot of car theft left, right, and center. So they are more stringent in terms of how you can actually be able to transfer a car and what are the requirements and all those kind of details. Since we are not the service providers in terms of anything related to cars, I'll direct this question to NTSA, and they will be the ones who will be able to answer for that. So anything related to service, we
so if
are
it's
not
any service, whether it's with NTSA, whether it's a county government, whether it's a business registration service, all those you cannot answer.
I cannot answer, and they have their call centers within their system, the people you can contact.
Better place
and go
to
through
answer.
process. Yes.
I want to go back to the data protection question, because you said what you have is the certificate, right? You're compliant so and so with
That's
the
right.
Office
Data
of
handling,
the
yes.
data handling certificate, right? But you don't have a third-party agreement. The reason I ask that is because compliance, the certificate shows you're compliant, you've gone through the training, you've been taught, so you have the basics. But a third-party agreement would give specific detail. What data is eCitizen allowed to have? What data is Webmasters allowed to have? What is it using it for? How long can it keep it? How is it disposed? Who is it allowed to share it with? Can it use it commercially? All those things would be part of a third-party agreement. So what I'm getting is that there is no third-party agreement as far as the eCitizen data and Webmasters.
And this is because we don't handle any data. And remember, I said that we don't have access to any data. So
You don't have access to any data? Any?
we don't have access to any data related to the services that you're applying. Those are data accessed by the different agencies. Yes?
Okay, the contractor doesn't have access
To the rooms.
To the rooms, yeah.
Hatuna access to the computer, si tunaweza fagia tu.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's why we asked, does your contract have those restrictions specific in the contract?
I have
That says that should you find a back route, or should we find that this contractor, yes, they did a door, but they also did a false
back
door
door.
somewhere, where at night akijifanya ati anafagia, anaingianga through the back door, anachukua kitu na anatoka. Should we ever find you'll have been in breach of the law? Is there anything in your contract that restricts your access to data?
I have to go back and read. Those are big documents. Probably there are all those restrictions there. I have not read the 200, 300-page document, and I cannot be able to confirm or deny.
Okay. We have Nahashan who's calling in from Ruiru, and he has a question for you. Nahashan, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Thank you for calling in. Ask your question to James Ayugi.
Actually, my question is more in relation to, I look at eCitizen, and it is more of convenience in paying, and that paying is not, the service delivery is not aligned to the payment. The government has made it very easy for us to pay money, but getting that service for what we are paying for, that is a challenge. I don't know what maybe the eCitizen guys at the end of the eCitizen in terms of receiving money are doing so that you can get the service
Do you have a specific?
as fast as you pay.
Do you have a specific example? For example, you're saying that if you go to eCitizen,
Yeah.
you are paying to access the platform, but you are not getting the service, or are you saying that the service is
Let me give an example of
Please.
the passport.
okay?
I paid for the passport. In as much as it has now been sorted, it took me about 6 months to be served,
Okay.
to get my passport. I know that the government position is that we are making it easier for people to get their services at the comfort of their seats. Yes, that comfort of our seats is paying money, but getting the service, that is something else.
Okay.
So I don't know, there is a disconnect between paying. The government is more interested in receiving
And the
money
service.
than giving value for that money.
I think, Nahashan, let's distinguish between two things.
Yes.
When you get onto eCitizen, there's the convenience fee that you pay
Yeah.
for entering the house. And then when you're applying for a passport, there's a fee for passport application.
Yes. For example,
is your issue the fee for passport application is too high, or is your issue the convenience fee is too high? What specific issue do you have with eCitizen?
Actually, I don't have any issue with the fees. The issue is the issue I have is the difference, or rather the disconnect between the ease of payment, because the eCitizen is giving me the ease of paying, but getting the service.
Okay.
Thank you,
getting the service.
And I want to tie that with something that we had said we'd talk about much earlier, which is this idea of fast-tracking services. We're saying, they've made it easy. It's easy to pay. I get on eCitizen, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, I've paid. Getting the service is a whole other story. Now, I know from where you sit, that is not your job to provide the service, but there's this thing called fast-tracking services.
Yes.
And it was quite a star. Walk us through.
I feel other sectors, let's say when you go to Kenyatta National Hospital, there is VIP where you, as long as you can afford,
there's a private room.
There's a private room, and then you can be able to be served. And it's only in Kenya where we don't have other options. So everyone is going through the same process. And then what that does, people still pay for fast-track services through other means. So I feel there might be need to implement some service charters, because as a citizen, I want guarantees that when I apply for a passport or apply for any service, I'll be able to get it within X number of days. And that now becomes the benchmark of how government is serving its people. So I feel when fast-track services are introduced, and by fast-track, it doesn't mean that you go through the same route, because this is something that already works in other countries. When you're applying for a visa, example, going to Dubai, you will either go through a fast-track, there's a unit just dedicated for that, but they'll tell you to come out in 2 days, 3 days. When you go through this normal process, since there are so many people, you'll get it after 7 days.
Right.
Same way when you're going first class with a plane or business, you get certain privileges, but you pay for it. The good part is this revenue that is collected from these people who are privileged to pay still comes in to construct roads and all this. So
let's formalize and legalize the corruption.
It is not corruption, it is service.
Because at the end of the day, you've said very correctly, we fast-track services all the time. It's just chini ya maji. It is, you give Latif a little extra something, and your passport can miraculously come out in half a day. If you go through the right channels, it could be 6 months, could be 3 weeks, who knows, right? In a place where the system already doesn't work, if you add a fast-tracking option, you're legalizing the corruption. In places where the systems work and there's this way to do things, and I go into the line and I get my visa in 3 weeks, but if I need it as an emergency, I can pay a little extra, that's perfectly fine. In places where already the system has been gamed, you're just legalizing corruption.
You are the one who said that.
I think in all areas, if you just think about it, it is basically formalizing it and saying, instead of going chini ya maji and encouraging a system then to create all these bottlenecks, let us make it a fast lane and a slow lane. Even on highways in some countries, there's a fast lane, there's a slow lane. We have an expressway in Nairobi, we have barabara ya chini, kuna maji na matope, kila kitu wanataka kujenga. That's a whole different conversation. But yeah.
Now, service delivery already is terrible. When you now make it, when you formalize the haves and the have-nots, what does that do for the service delivery? The gap in service delivery becomes yay big. And we know our capacity as a country. If you formalize and you have a fast-track lane, the fast-track lane will be the only one where anything happens. Ukuchini, the rest will be left to figure out their devices.
Barabara chini will never be repaired.
Will never be repaired. That's basically it. So we're legalizing and fast-tracking the corruption. And that wealth inequality now becomes also service inequality, becomes, everything.
Again, these are now the issues that needs to go through an act of parliament where it needs to be discussed, and then they find the best way of executing it. Because how comes we have
What's the why? Why not make it so that government services are accessible to everyone in a decent amount of time? And in the event of emergency, it shouldn't be at an extra cost. For example, when people are traveling for medical needs and things like that, right? You shouldn't have to pay extra to fast track your passport. You should just be able to bring a letter from a hospital that says, I need to go, so help me fast track this passport. I go to the visa office with the same thing, right?
So the problem is we have a culture where we love doing things last minute. Example, everyone leaves work
at the same time.
At 4 or 5. So nyinyi wote mnakutana kwa traffic and then mnakwama hapo kwa traffic. So we have people who want to apply for these services just when they want to travel and they want it tomorrow. And this is the majority of people. So if everyone wants to travel tomorrow, there are also individuals who are sick. Currently there is provision within government when you have emergency travel, they will fast track that for you at no cost. But these individuals who last minute, they just want to travel tomorrow to Dubai, piga sherehe. And they can't pay. These are people who have money.
The problem is, the resources will be diverted to cater to James and Ayugi, who want to go to Dubai last minute, at the expense of Mariam, who has been in line for 3 months, 6 months, however long. That's how our country works.
And
that's why I'm saying
where,
in places where these things, where systems work, fast tracking is.
Why do systems work? Systems work across the board, where even those playing the oversight role are doing their job. You see that those guys on Parliament Road, those guys, if those guys worked and they created, like James is saying, created a law that ensures that we have all these measures in place.
Right.
And then they are also, because they're representing the people, when the people complain that, the services on the lower road are not as fast as the ones on the upper deck, then they go and say, why are you not offering the services with the same quality on the lower deck?
Yeah.
So it's about oversight.
And then also,
but then now it also allows you, if you want to jump from here to the airport and ulikuwa umechelewa, ulikuwa na meeting, na ndege yako ni in the next 40 minutes, ingia expressway, enda lipa. If you wanted to plan early and you leave earlier, tumia barabara ya chini, kwa jam Nyayo, ni sawa utafika airport.
Exactly.
Lakini you'll have factored in, kuna jam ya Haile Selassie,
Shidani, how long after the expressway was ready did it take for them to start repairs?
Because of those guys on Parliament Road again.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm saying now if you do the fast tracking thing, it's still those guys that are going to be in power at that time. They will not oversight anything.
We remove them.
So there are two aspects. One, even with the expressway, there are rainy days where everyone wants to go through the expressway.
Yes.
And you still get kuna traffic chini na kuna traffic juu. Those are isolated days. So in this incident, I'm looking at a scenario where there will be dedicated teams just for the fast track services, and there'll be other teams who are handling the normal process. So when talking about fast track, because it's going to be, in my opinion, one of the biggest revenue generators for government, and the government will probably should invest a lot of money to making sure that if I'm paying premium, I'm getting a premium service, as long as I can afford.
We are saying, let's formalize this haves and have-notisms of Kenya.
It is already
it's
happening
there. Let's
currently.
just put it in
story, Mariam.
But we can move on to something else, because I think it's going to be it's a discussion. It's a discussion, yes, that we could have. But there's so many other questions still on eCitizen.
Yes.
Mariam amesema tu historia you need
we're
to
formalizing,
make it make sense,
every terrible thing about our culture, because anyway, I don't want to go into that. It's going to be a debate. Lakini kuna maswali bado YouTube that I wanted to ask. I had seen someone asking, can we integrate eCitizen in making reports to police in terms of getting OB numbers and things, lost phones, lost IDs? I think that's a service that could be onboarded, right?
Yes, I think there's a provider for the OB system, and it will be probably added in future.
Okay. We'll take a break and then come back and ask more questions. Send your questions, call in and ask James Ayugi, the CEO of Webmasters. Webmasters are the ones who developed the eCitizen platform. And what have they done now to the government? They have licensed it to the government. For how long? How often do we need to keep renewing this thing?
No, it's indefinite.
No renewal fee?
It is indefinite.
But there
the
is
technology
a fee.
is owned license, so the government owns whatever version of the system we have for them.
Forever.
Forever.
Okay.
They can improve it. They can remember.
Should you choose to do eCitizen for Tanzania, no one can stop you though. Sindio?
Yes, we are able to do eCitizen for Tanzania or for any other country with a customized version. Remember, we don't have the same laws, the same processes, so we can be able to export wherever the knowledge we have and customize wherever the systems we have for other markets.
All right.
Yes.
If you left today, could the government still continue running eCitizen?
Yes. eCitizen, we've been doing knowledge transfer, and it is running. Currently, when you apply for any service, be it at NTSA, it is being run by NTSA.
Let's take a
the
break.
IT team and all those kind of guys.
You'll respond to more of these questions. 8:30, time for that break. James Ayugi is here. Ask him all the questions. We'll be back shortly.
Of course, hashtag remains Fixing the Nation NTV. Maswali ni mengi YouTube. But you wanted to ask him something before the break actually went in, Eric.
Yeah, this was with regards to, we ran a story on the Daily Nation, ran a story earlier in the week, how eCitizen owners defied State House. And it was talking about a meeting with President William Ruto in State House, where as soon as the president said, let's increase the number of services that that citizens are able to access on eCitizen, called a meeting and said, there's been court cases, there are ownership wrangles of this eCitizen platform. Can you guys hand over this thing? And then there was a meeting that took place at the National Treasury thereafter in November 2022, which brought in the leadership of the National Treasury and yourselves. And there was the issue of handing over. And this story was saying you still are yet to hand over these services. That's a question.
So I think the writer of that article got access to the handover agreement, and it's an old story. Basically, we've handed over to the government, and we are currently supporting the government.
What was the standoff initially?
There was no standoff. It was just a process that there's what the government wanted, there's what we wanted. And for us, we've always wanted to offer our services and our talents to the general good of the public. So over these years, since the youth days until when we all, this is all we've been doing. So I might be just one, but there are so many other young guys behind the scenes who every single day they work hard to make all these systems work. So during the meetings, I was there in those meetings. It was agreed on the process, but later on, people realized that it's a big ecosystem and there is multiple agencies involved. So it's going to be a process that involves so many other agencies for them to run their part of the services. So the handover process when it comes to technology, it is like a marathon. It's a long-term process, and just every single day there's so much we learn from multiple agencies. We need to be able to train some officers.
And this will happen over time.
Yes.
You know, that story was actually quoting documents presented in court in a response affidavit
Yes.
by the Principal Secretary for the National Treasury,
Yes.
Dr. Kiptor.
Yes.
The handover was to happen in 4 stages.
Yes.
Stage number 1, up to January 27th, 2023,
Yes.
a setup of a physical space stocked with relevant tools to be done by end of January 2023. Did that happen? Yes, no?
Yes, it happened.
It happened?
Yes.
Completely?
Yes.
Okay. The second stage, documents such as the system source code, the system architecture, user manual, and others to be handed over by February 3rd, 2023. Did it happen?
Yes, we handed over all those.
Everything?
Yes.
Including the source code?
Yes.
By February 24th, 2023, a system audit and remedial actions were to be completed.
That was also done.
It happened?
Yes.
By July 13th, 2023, capacity building, including training of government staff by Webmasters, was to happen.
That one is what now we realized. First, for you to be able to manage the system, there are certain skill sets you need to have. And within government, those talent was not present. So there was no one to be able to say, I can take over the code and be able to change it. So we realized knowledge transfer is going to be an ongoing process so that we identify talents and we co-work with them. So currently we are working with...
so this date was changed from July 13th. What's the new date?
It's now ongoing.
It's open-ended?
No, not open-ended. It is ongoing. There are certain government agencies who...
What's the deadline, James? The initial deadline was July 13th, 2023. This was agreed in your meeting. Then you realized that, well, we do not have people with the requisite skill. So what is the new deadline for capacity building, including training of government staff by Webmasters?
So this is on service by service level. And the way I say it, eCitizen is not one system. And there are different departments. So depending with where we are offering the service, is usually within a certain period. 6 months, we train them and then they're able to run their own services.
So can we say by end of this year, next year, 2032?
There are services that are being onboarded and there are services that have already been onboarded. For the ones that have already been onboarded, we've handed over, we've trained the officers and they're currently offering the services and they're able to do it. For the new ones, we go through the same process of training and handing over user manuals and all those to those departments of government.
Right.
So there's not one single person that is trained on eCitizen. There are different departments of government.
But the idea here would be that once you've built the capacity, that any new requirements for a new service, these new people with the skill and the capacity would be able to do it themselves without necessarily having to come to Webmasters to develop it.
As a business...
Is that not what capacity building and knowledge transfer is all about?
As a business, of course we want to be the ones who are onboarding all these services. This is what we invested all our time and energy to be able to do. And of course it gives us an opportunity to also export. So we are not just looking at Kenya. We are looking at what are the lessons we can learn from Kenya and start exporting technology. We are now moving into the tech era and coffee and hizi zingine zote kuna watu wengine wenye wana compete na sisi. But in the tech space, we want to be the ones exporting this. So yes, as a business, there are certain intellectual knowledge that we have.
That you're unwilling to transfer.
No, every day you learn new stuff. Today I'll tell you something, tomorrow imebadilika.
I'm being pedantic about this because capacity building and knowledge transfer. But you're saying that I want to retain my relevance here, so I will not transfer all the knowledge that is required for these people to run on their own. I still want to make sure that lazima wanipige.
Lakini question is, saizi, when you're drinking Coca-Cola, mbona uendange kuambia kupatia formula?
Hiyo si agreement yao. Agreement yetu na wewe, which is here, which has been presented in court, is that this is what was agreed. That Webmasters are going to have a capacity building and knowledge transfer by July 13th, 2023.
So for that one, now let me give you perspective. The knowledge transfer that happens within the software industry is in regards to operation of the technology. So you should be able to log in, modify, improve the technology. So I'll train you how the technology works. Saizi, there are left, right, and center colleges zinafunza watu how softwares developed by other companies work. Ukienda hizi colleges zote za computer in Nairobi, they're just teaching you about Microsoft suite. There's really nothing important from those colleges, but they're just teaching you this is how Word works, this is how. So in our case, that's pretty much what we do. We teach you how the different softwares work so that you're able to use it to the benefit of the public. So hiyo tumefanya, and that's why you're able to access the services. Without us, the government is able to offer the services to the citizens, and they're able to support them.
All right. Capacity. This, we said contractor ni Webmaster, sawa. Tumejenga. Inside kuna NTSA, kuna watu wa immigration, kuna kila mtu, sindio? When there's need to expand the capacity, quote unquote, to build on top of this foundation that was e-registry and eCitizen, now they come back to you. Has that happened?
So they
and have they charged?
So let me. So in the digital space,
yes,
it is mostly the server capacity. The server capacity means now, and currently where it is hosted it is owned by the government. So if you're bringing in new services, it's the government that says, okay, we need this DR site, we need this additional server to cater for additional services. So currently, the different departments.
What about if it's not additional services, additional functionalities, something that would require that the source code, for example?
So if there's additional functionality, let's say example, there are certain improvements that we've added, like appointments. Appointments in certain services, imesaidia sana kumanage chaos.
So.
Remember the way I said Kenyans have this mentality, if you want, and remember those days, those Huduma days, ukipita hapo Nyayo House utaona line ilikuwa inazunguka. Because everyone is waking up early, na kila mtu anakutana hapo at the same time. So line, kila mtu anakuja asubuhi and then boom. So now we introduced appointment process, where now you have an appointment, you have your slot, within a specific time you're able to get your service. And then also...
So you charge now the government for this, right?
No. These are enhancements, are within the support and maintenance.
Okay.
During support and maintenance, there are things that may not, the features menye haikuwa kwa system, and it is needed. So we are able to develop that functionality and roll it out.
The pay-per-use thing, I think ruffled a few feathers, because it was like, so every time you come and you fix a bug, you charge, right?
That's not correct.
Okay,
yes.
Tell me about it.
So bugs are catered for in the support and maintenance.
So is it a fixed amount every month, every year? Or is it you charge per service, per use?
It is up to X number of services. You get this support. X number of services, you charge like this. And I can promise you, the government...
What's up, nation? This is Zakaria Fubowa from Njolo. One question to James. How do they control our data, like privacy, to cybercrimes? How do they control it?
Safety against cyber attacks. And just to give context on this particular one,
right.
There was something that the government told us, tech people called a DDoS attack in July 2023, where for a couple of hours, days, eCitizen was inaccessible by people who wanted eCitizen services. Then, earlier this year, there was the data breach at the BRS, the Business Registration Service, which we access through eCitizen. Okay? So, do you have a role in protecting us against cyber attacks?
Yes. So, all the data that are processed through eCitizen are encrypted, meaning even if you have access to the database, you won't be able to understand, because you'll need our system to be able to decrypt it. So they're encrypted. Number two, all the traffic goes through a secure layer, which is we have SSL certificates, and after the attack, we now have a security layer that acts as a firewall to filter out any unnecessary traffic. Example, what happened during that time, it was an intentional cyber war,
right,
where some individuals financed denial of service attack. Now, the way I usually describe it is, example, 100 people calling you at the same time. It will be busy. Now getting through won't be easier. So that's pretty much what denial of service attack is. So there's never been, for the 10 years, anyone who's ever managed to breach and access the systems we operate. But remember, there might be individuals, these are just people, either within government or private sector, who may have access to certain information, and they end up either selling data or doing those kind of things. Those are not related to us. And when those kind of scenarios are found, there's usually a legal process around it. So either once they're identified, they're taken to court, and they are arrested or charged as per the law. So the data is safe. It is within the government-run data center, it is protected at rest, and no one has access to your data without a formal process.
Okay.
Yes.
There's also been another complaint of people saying that their eCitizen accounts have been hacked. Somebody has gained access to their eCitizen account. Maybe this is also related to a question that we've seen here being asked on civic education on the use of the eCitizen platform. So start with that first one. How do you address that question? Because it's a concern. People saying, nilipata mtu ameingia kwa eCitizen yangu, ameanza kuapply driving license, ameanza kuuza gari.
So there are people who, when we started, we were not verifying phones. So we realized that some people are using their parents' phone numbers, or guys have lost numbers, and now there's new individuals using the same number, or people just share. So, go apply for my driver's license. Those guys use even their own phone numbers, you know. So in the initial stages, there was less civic education, and people didn't even know how to renew DL because they're used to old ways of doing things. But now, later on, we've improved this, and now it is more secure. So before you log in, you have to get OTP. This OTP is in your registered phone number, and the phone number needs to be registered in your name. So when you call and you say you want your phone number to be updated, it has to be verified that you actually, the ID in that phone and your ID on eCitizen matches. So just like the way some people recklessly share their password for bank and then they are unaibiwa, same way we have people who are reckless on how they handle their login details, and then when they go to cyber cafe, they save, and then some guys are able to access their accounts. So it is isolated, but there is more civic education that is needed so that people know how to protect. So number one, you need to activate OTP so that every single time when someone tries to log into a eCitizen account, you have to get SMS. And for them to access your account, they have to have that special code. And that one is one of the security features. But we've improved to even include now digital signatures and facial recognition in the future. When you download Gavam Kononi, it has all these functionalities that adds layers of security for those individuals who want just to protect their account even further. So security, of course, is a major concern. And for assets like cars, land, and all these others that is very delicate, there is another layer or third or second layer verification process before it is actually closed. For companies, you'll realize when you want to change any directorship, these days they even call you just to make sure that it is you who is doing those transfer. So all these layers have been discussed, they've been implemented just to make sure that the data and the accounts are secure.
Okay. I want to wrap up with a few of the questions on YouTube. There was a question about a service for applying for national ID in the platform, just like the passport, birth certificate, and a certificate of good conduct. Is that something that is part of the onboarding process, that people can now get their ID as on eCitizen as well?
You cannot get ID on eCitizen because it has certain process, but you can pay for the ID service on eCitizen.
Okay.
So you go pay, and then you have to physically visit Huduma Center. They take your fingerprint, they take your photo, they verify it, and then your ID will be issued through a different process.
Okay. The difference of eCitizen and TSA, I think Petra had spoken about that one, that's okay. I think mostly, a lot of them have just been answered.
There was also a question by Wangeshi, who was talking about the number of daily transactions on eCitizen. And also, when you talk about over 22,000 government services now available on eCitizen,
right?
How do we count a service? When we say there are over 22,000, how do we count a service?
So a service is an application that has a payment tied to it. So let's say example, and then payment there might be within
tiers.
passport. Yes, passport you can have a basic one, which is, let's say, 5,000. If you want 50 pages, 100 pages, X amount. So all these are different.
So all those are different services.
So within the driver's license, you may have 20 services. So these are different revenue lines that government uses to collect non-tax revenue. So these 22,000 services are those specific services that you pay for.
Okay.
Yes.
120,000 transactions daily. Explain, what does that mean?
It means there are 120,000 applications submitted to different government agencies every single day.
Okay.
And that data is only the Treasury who's able to give you, because now they are the ones who have visibility of all the transactions that are coming in every single day.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have visibility of how many visits you have onto the platform?
Again,
do you know how many people visit or use eCitizen on a daily basis?
Even if they don't transact, yeah.
The numbers are higher because there are people just coming into kuona tu, anaangalia akaunti yake iko poa, anataka kuringia mtu, and then also for verification purposes, there are people every single time they log into eCitizen to show the cops, this is my DL, or so that we have those kind of people. Those numbers are higher. So we have higher numbers of people who every single day log in. This is in the tune of 300,000 plus, but not necessarily applying for service, but to verify certain documentation, be it a license, a certificate, or whatever it is. Yes.
Okay. James, thank you for joining us today and for answering all these questions from us, from our community of fixers who've called in, sent in their videos, who've posted the questions online. Asante. We hope at least there's been some clarity. There's still some gray areas, but more and more you are clarifying some issues.